Hello and welcome to episode 12 of the Mad Mad and Mel podcast. My name's Mel, and if you are a regular viewer, hi. And if you're new to the podcast, welcome. My name's Mel and I live on the Orkney Islands off the north coast of Scotland. And I live here with my husband and 2 kitties in a small holding and do lots and lots of things. Primarily, I am a botanical yarn dyer, and apart from that I do all sorts of bits and bobs. If you look back in my past videos, you'll see I juggle many balls. This podcast is primarily a knitting podcast, although I do other crafts, as I've said. A bit of spinning, I think you just see a wee spinning wheel in the background there. And most crafts, if you can think of it, I've usually tried it, although maybe not carried on with it. But the podcast is primarily knitting. If I'm looking a bit bedraggled today, if you know me from my previous podcast, I always look a bit sallow. I've got really dark circles under my eyes, and I've had them since I was a kid, but I'm looking particularly tired today, so I do apologise. And I'm not in anything, I'm kind of in my comfy clothes today. I will talk a little bit about that at the end if I remember, but basically I've come out of remission for trigeminal neuralgia, which I have, and consequently I've been in a lot of pain and I'm now on a lot of meds, so I may look a little bit I'd like to say spacey. I'm not spacey, but it's been a spacey sort of a week. So anyway, on to the content of the show. I'm hoping I've mentioned everything. If not, I'll put it below, but I'll have all my links to Etsy and all that crap down below. So anyway, so on to the knitting. I'm going to try and keep this one fairly short. I'm kind of limited on the amount of time before John comes in from work, and I haven't set up, I'm in a slightly different position because I've not set up my studio light. So I've got the window here, which basically means every time I go and like lean down or something, I'm going to blow out. The light's going to blow out, so I do apologise. I'm relying upon the afternoon light today. I just didn't want to have to set up my studio light and what have you. So where should we begin? Probably should begin with finished objects, and I do have a finished object this week, and it's not a sock. It's one I've been working on. It's the Plumetis shawl by oh yeah, that's another thing with the meds, and my brain's just, it'll come back to me, it will. Anyway, I've knitted a shawl, I finished a shawl, and I'm going to struggle to stretch this out. Let me get this on the right way around as well. Okay, because it's big. So we'll go, yeah, I can't see what's in shot. It's quite large. It hasn't been blocked yet. There we go, there's the point, there's the end, and you've got these pig bits, yay! It's quite large. And it's a really simple design, and I loved doing this. This is good evening knitting. Who was it? Melody Hoffman. That's the one. I knew the name would come to me. Anyway, is that right? I'm sure it's right. It must be right. It is a simple garter design, as you can see, and it's got these little eyelets in the, let's see if I can show it. There we go. It's just a simple garter, eyelets, nice loose knit, and then it's got this extra colour added on the sides after you've knit the body of the shawl, and they are done using short row shaping basically, and that's about as much as I can tell you without giving away the pattern, but it's really nice and really clever construction in the way it's done. It means you can knit a triangular shawl and then kind of make it elongated at the ends without giving it too much depth, which is the problem I find with a lot of triangular shawls. Is if you get too much depth, it's going to end up like down to your belly button before you get enough length, wingspan in the shawl to be able to wrap around your neck. Because I'm not really well, it could be like a shawl around the shoulder, unless I was kind of sitting doing spinning or something like that. To wear a shawl, I'm going to wear it more like a scarf, in the fact that I would wrap it around. I can't speak. And then I'm trying to look to see what's happening here, but wear it like this, and the ends down here. I've lost the, where is it? There we go. So I'm not looking at the camera because I'm looking at the screen, but I would kind of wear it like this. But because it's got quite a bit of depth as well, you get this nice squishy cowl effect thing going on here. So it's nice squishy cowl, covers your décolletage when you're wearing a dress, and yet still has the end bits, ignore that, the end bits coming down here so it doesn't get lost somewhere and you'd fall off everywhere. I haven't woven it in the ends yet, as you can see. I meant to do that last night and I forgot. But I will do it tonight, and then I can get this thing blocked. I mean, you could wear it without blocking it. It's just that especially the center point, it's kind of curling like that, so that needs blocking out for certain, and the length of the pointy bits probably want blocking out as well. The things I've changed, I did one thing, well, I struggled with the pattern at times in that at certain points I'd end up with the wrong amount of stitches for that instructions on the pattern. I can't really explain much without going into details of the pattern, but I get to a certain point at the end of a row and it would say, oh, you've got so many stitches left or whatever, and I'm like, no, I've definitely not got that amount of stitches. But I kind of like fudged it and made it work. The way I picked up the stitches was slightly different, and obviously I wasn't concentrating in a couple of places because it's a little messy. I must stop saying I do apologise. I'll go instead, but I've just picked up the stitches and it's come up quite neat most of the time. I think I just need to even out the stitches on some of the parts. The only other thing I changed is that in the pattern, this is not really giving anything away, in the pattern it tells you to leave the triangle once you get this point live, the stitches live, then pick up for the border, and then when you've done the border and cast all that off, is to then bind off the centre section. But the trouble with that, and other people have found it on Ravelry as well, is that you would end up with this step, because you'd pick up the stitches one stitch below for the pink, and then I'm going to stretch this out, and then you'd bind off and have this step, whereas, and that's just where my kind of slip knot is. If I go to the other end, you could see it's a nice smooth line, and that's because I bound off the center section first and then picked up the stitches, so there wasn't this extra row that would appear once I bound off the triangle, and that works a lot better. I mean, that's a nice, it's not been woven in it, that's a really crappy stitch, but it hasn't got a jog. Yeah, it hasn't got one of those. So that was the main thing I changed in the pattern. But other than that, I really like it. I've knit this in my own yarn in a base. Actually, it's not one of my most popular bases, but I really love this. This is the, oh, what's it called? I can't remember what the actual name for the yarn is, but it's 50/50 merino tencel base, and I can't get over how much I love tencel. I think I showed it on the last podcast in the skein, and I haven't got my project bag to hand with the remaining yarn in it, so I'll just have to show this as best I can to the camera, but it's quite shiny. The pink really shows up the shine better, but it might not in this light because it's going to blow out, but it's got like a sheen to it. It's almost like a silk in its shine, but shinier than a silk. So I've knit this in my quartz colorway for the center section, and for the pink it's in my rose quartz, I believe, center section. And this was a skein that had a little bit extra of dark, I mean it has some dark flecks in it, and they probably won't just show up. You see those little dark bits there, and it has that in the colourway anyway, but when it was in the skein you could see a lot more dark flecks than normally is. and it's you can't really see it. When it's stitched up, actually, it's not noticeable at all. And I like the dark flecks anyway. I was hoping they would show up, but they haven't because of it being a garter stitch. If it was in stock on it, it would. But now when I worked out the yardage, or looked at the yardage on Ravelry for this, I can't remember what the yardage was going to be for the centre triangle, but I knew one skein would be enough. And I only pulled aside the one skein of the pink, the rose quartz, and the yardage was quite high on it. And I looked at the yardage on the merino tencel, which is slightly less than, it's a little bit less than if it was like a merino nylon or something like that, because the tencel, the yardage is less. It's the same if you had a merino bamboo base, as your yardage would be less because the fibres are more dense and they're heavy and so on. So the yardage is lower on this, and I was worried it wouldn't go far enough to, I would be short. So what I did was I took this yarn away with me to Perth, and whilst we were in our Airbnb, I got the skein and I stretched it out, and I counted how many strands were in the skein, and I wrote that down and I halved it. And I got this, obviously I didn't have my skein, I didn't have my ball wind or anything like that at Perth. So I got the 2 dining chairs, you know, the 2 dining chairs things, and I wound up into a ball half the amount of strands that I'd counted. And when I got to that point, I tied a knot and a loop and a knot, and then I carried on winding. And the idea being, because you do kind of one half first and then the other half, was if I would knit the first half, and if I got to the point where the knot was, which is half the yarn, I would stop, kind of fudge it a wee bit, and then swap to doing the other side, because, and then I would know I would have about enough yarn to do it, and I would just kind of fudge it however best I could to make it look right, to make sure I wasn't going to run out of yarn basically. But actually when it came down to it, I didn't reach that knot, and I'd completely forgotten about the knot until I was 2 rows from finishing the entire shawl. I think I had to finish like 1 row and then bind off, and that was it. So the wedges on this took less than 50 grams, which I was amazed at. I mean, I know I've knit this loose, but I haven't really knit it any looser than the original pattern. The only reason it might look a little looser than the original, I don't think it really does, but I think in the pattern she used a fluffier yarn, whereas this is more, it's got a fuzz, you know, because it's you can't really see it, but it's merino, and merino has a bit of fuzz to it. But I think she used probably had like one of the fine lace weight in it, maybe some mohair, or there was some mohair or something fluffy in the yarn she used, and it looked a little bit fuller, a little fluffier. And I'm assuming it would I'm sure in the pattern it said you needed like 2 skeins of the second colour or something like, or maybe 1 skein, and because my yardage was shorter than, you know, I would need more, but it only took a smidgen over 50 grams. So I'm really pleased with that. It means I've got 50 grams of this pink left. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. Something will crop up. So yes, that is my finished Plumetis shawl. And I believe I knit this on... I'm not sure. It'll be in my Ravelry notes, and I will put the link to those below. So that's my main finished object for this episode. Now, other finished objects are kind of rehashed objects. I mentioned about fixing socks, and I managed to fix 2 socks, not of the same pair, mind, but 2 socks whilst I was away. I've got this pair of socks, and I love this. These were one of the first pairs I ever knit, and this was in Rico, I don't know if it's Superbar or Superba yarn. It's like looks like it's really shrunk. It's a wool nylon bamboo blend, and it's really soft, and I fell in love with the pattern of this self-patterning yarn kind of before I'd really started knitting socks. I think it was this that inspired me, finally gave me the final push to actually try knitting socks. As I saw this in a yarn shop. So it was a sample knitted up, and they had the other yarns, but they didn't have this colourway available. That sold out, understandably, because the sample was knit up in the shop. So I remembered the name and I've put it on my Ravelry favourites, and it inspired me to try knitting socks. And I knit another pair in another yarn, and then when I managed to get a ball of this, and then I knit these socks, and I loved them, and I've had them for like 2 or 3 years. But they need repairing again. They've been darned. I don't know if you can see that they've been darned, but there's like little patches and stuff like that. They are clean, don't worry. They do collect fluff and bits and bobs. So there's a bit of darning been done there and a bit up here. My socks tend to wear out here. Occasionally they'll wear out on the heel, mostly on this wee bit of the heel. And usually I would do like a heel stitch on this section. These ones, I don't know if the heels, yeah, or if the eye of partridge all the way. I usually do eye of partridge at the back, and I do these toe up, but I do heel stitch here. But I'm switching to do an eye of partridge the whole lot because it's a bit tougher. But anyway, I did the other sock and I repaired it. I haven't done the heel yet. It needs some. It needs a bit of reinforcing in the heel. But I have repaired the base of the sock, and as you can see, it looks a bit odd. What I did, and I mentioned I was going to do this last time, is I picked up the stitches here and I picked up the stitches around here, and I cut this section out completely. I put the toe on just some scrap yarn and put the rest of the sock on my needles, and I knit this whole section again. What I did was, I'm trying to remember what I did here, is I did eye of partridge on the bottom and just knit regular on the top. Eye of partridge, regular. And when I got close to the toe, obviously eye of partridge is a shorter stitch, it creates a shorter piece of fabric. I did some short rows across here to reach, not quite, but near enough the same length as the top of the sock. And I'm not sure if you'll be able to see that very well. I can't see it very well, so you're not going to see it on camera. But yeah, I just basically did a bit of short row shaping here. And I just did, I think I did German short rows there. That's probably why I can't see them. And then I Kitchener stitched the toe back on. And it's actually done really well. You can see it's where the burgundy colour band is. That is the original part of the sock where it joins onto the new bit, and it's worked really well. So now I have the sock. I just need to reinforce that heel, and I have a sock I can wear, although I can't wear the pair until I do the other sock. So I need to pick up the stitches on that one and do exactly the same, and then hopefully they'll last me out another year or two. I mean, these have lasted 2 or 3 years, so there's no reason why they shouldn't last me another year or two if the bit where it kept going was here and that's all been redone again. So that's kind of a finished object, but it's not finished, but you know what I mean. The other one, excuse the rustling here, I did exactly the same thing with my first ever pair of socks I ever knitted, before I knitted those ones that I'd been inspired by. And these ones were knit in, I have no idea yarn. I can tell you though, because I have the label to hand. Excuse the blowing out, like I said. It's the, I never know how to pronounce, Sudar, Heart and Soul. Sometimes it goes by another name, but I can't remember, but it's basically the same yarn. And it is shade number 53. And I don't know if it has a name or not. But I just really like the combination of the colours. I just thought it was just really nice. And this was the first ever pair of socks I ever knit. And what I've done is exactly the same thing. And again, I need to reinforce the heels, because this, at the time I didn't do any sort of different stitching on the heels for these ones. It was just, these ones were kind of, I can't remember what that sort of heel's called again. Just a basic heel turn. I don't know. I can't remember. I don't knit that type of heel anymore. I knit a toe up heel flap. like that, because I have high arches, and this sort of sock doesn't normally fit. What I did when I knit this, and I found it was tight across the bridge of my foot, but when my ankle, you know, high arches problem, is I put I put extra stitches in to widen it before I really knew what I was doing. I just did some increases on the sides of the sock up to where it pointed to the heel, and did this right angle that I can't remember the name of heel. So I love these socks. They're not my favourite socks. They're close. My favourite socks are my Christmas socks. My first ever pair of Christmas socks. I love those. They fit perfect. And you slip them on, it's just like, ooh, they feel nice. Which sounds really weird, but it's then just a commercial yarn, and I love that slightly woolly feel to them. Not scratchy, no, just slightly woolly, and you pull them on and they've got that satisfying feel of they're cozy. It's kind of like slipping into your favourite pyjamas. But I did exactly the same. I don't know if I did this one first or second, can't remember, but again, I've done eye of partridge on the bottom, and you can see more where I've actually kitchen stitched this torn here. The colourway doesn't match up quite so well, but it doesn't matter. All they're doing is going on my feet. I matched up the colourway, I rewound up, I think I centre pulled the ball of yarn so that the pattern repeat would carry on the same instead of being in reverse, because again I knit these toe up, but I have to kind of knit them top down to do the repair work. So again, it's just that kitchen short roll shaping at the top, and kitchen at the toe on. There's a slight ridge on the inside of this one. I think I did this one first actually, and realised I was pulling the kitchen stitches just a wee bit tight, making a little bit of a ridge. The other ones you can't really feel. It's the slight feel of where the join is, but you can't really feel it the same way as this one. But it's not bad. I mean, I'm going to be wearing them, I won't feel it. It's just I can feel it with my fingertips. So that's kind of my last, I think that's my last finished object for this episode. Oops, it's blowing out, I'm really sorry. So that's finished objects. What have we got in the way of whips? Well, bear with me. I started the pattern for, I'm going to have to try and not show the pattern for this on my piece of paper, so just bear with me. I started the Brave at Heart mittens by, oh, what's her name? She goes by Paper Tiger. Diana? Is it Diana Waller? I'll put the name up and I'll put the link because I can't remember. I should have checked beforehand. Yeah, I'm not very organised today. It's the Brave at Heart mittens, which is basically a Gryffindor mitten. And I will try and show the picture of what these look like without showing the pattern. That should be okay. Right, okay. And they look like this. Oh, the outside of them look like this. That's not what the inside looks like. I'm not sure if I can show you the inside. Hang on. Yeah. That's the palm looks like that. I actually bought the whole set, and I'm going to be making them for gifts. So if you're related to me, sorry, because you know what you're going to get. So I'm going to make the Gryffindor mittens, and then I'm going to make myself some Ravenclaw ones, because I'm in Ravenclaw. If you're Ravenclaw, tell me. Actually, just tell me which house you're in, as I'm in Ravenclaw. And I'm interested in the people's houses. My husband is in Hufflepuff actually, which didn't surprise me in the slightest. He's just very typically a Hufflepuff. So anyway, so I'm going to be making the Gryffindor ones, and the yarns I chose to make this with are, oh, I'm going to get a bit tangled in my needles here, but they're both Holst yarns. As you can see, there's that one, and this one's attached. This one's a bit tricky, and that one like that, and they are perfect for Gryffindor mittens. That's looking a little, I'll try to open them more. That's a bit better. That one's, it's a bit more golden than that. There, that's what they look like, kind of. Yeah, like that. Ignore my face blowing out because the yarn looks about right. There we go. The main colour is, I don't know how to pronounce that. Baccara? I was trying to. There we go. And the contrast colour is Goldcrest. That's that one. I know how to pronounce Goldcrest. It's a bird. So they're in super soft, and yep, hopefully they'll work out. The problem I had is I'm knitting these on a 2mm needle because the person before has small hands. It's much smaller than mine. I have like washerwoman hands. I have like, you know, peasant hands. But the person that these are for does not and has very petite hands. So I'm knitting these on a 2mm needle, which is the smallest needle I have, but I don't have 2mm needles in my usual Knit Pro. So I had to go and look at my old, this is going to set some people away with a song in their head, my old bamboo knitting needles from when I first, you know, bought like sets of circular needles. I got one of those cheap sets of bamboo ones. And I cast this on last night and I got that far. Basically, I got a cast on and what, 1.5 rows? I might not have even got that. I might have got like half a row past my cast on, and this happened. The needle come out. It's not broken, but I'm going to have to put a blob of super glue on that. And I'll stick that in there. Because what I was doing was, because I haven't used these 2mm needles before, I just kind of used a nail file and sanded down the join. They tend to be a bit, join is not great on them, and I had a bit of an issue with one of them. It must be, was it that one or that one? That one, where it's kind of a bit splintery because they're cheap and they're bamboo, and you know. So I'd filed that down and I'd filed the join down, and then I noticed when I went to go do this one that it was apart slightly, and then I thought, oh, will it push in? Yeah, which means if it push in, it'll pull out. So I only got that far last night in front of the movie. Last night's movie, because it's October, we're into October, it means Vlogtober, but it also means October time, and that means lots of movies that I tend to watch around this time of year. My husband is not a horror movie fan. He doesn't like scary movies. So, you know, we're kind of alternating movies. So last night we watched The Witches of Eastwick, which I don't really count as a Halloween movie, but October just gives you the excuse to rewatch a film, if you know what I mean, rather than thinking, oh, I'll just watch something new on like Amazon Prime. Well, we usually end up watching something new. So because it's October, it kind of gives you that sense, well, let's gather all the DVDs together that are kind of Halloween themed as well as Halloween ones and watch those. It's the same at Christmas time in December. There's lots of Christmas movies, and you could just watch the Hallmark Channel or something like that. We have some Christmas DVDs, but it wouldn't be enough to kind of spread the whole of December, but it gives you that excuse to pull those sort of sort of family and Christmassy, but not necessarily Christmassy movies together, like Mary Poppins and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and all those that are not necessarily Christmas films, but you kind of remember watching them around Christmas time, or they have that sort of feel like Disney's Peter Pan, or you know, that sort of thing. So last night was Witches of Eastwick, which is not scary, obviously. So tonight I can watch a scary movie. But we're not talking about that now because we're talking about knitting. But last night, that's as far as I got during the Witches of Eastwick. So then I jumped up and went to the cupboard with my knitting projects in. I pulled out a pair of socks. I thought I'll just, then my travel knitting ones, just work on that. But I couldn't be bothered to work on that. I wanted something mindless, something that was just knitting. This knitting 2x2 rib for the cuff would have been mindless knitting. I didn't want to have to be doing like 5 part, which is just where I'm up to the heel part on the sock, and counting stitches, and I just couldn't be bothered with that. So I gave up on knitting that sock, and then I pulled something else out, and I didn't want to do that either. Oh, it was my Spike sweater. I thought, oh, the Spike sweater. I've done all the colour work. I've done the bitty bit, like the lace bit. I've done all the colour work. I'm up to the, that was my zip. It's up to the body part. It's just plain knitting. And then I got on my laptop, no it's not, it's got a pattern thing in it, it's got a cable thing in it. But it's only every few rows, that's fine. And then I realised, actually, I'm up to the bit where you have to separate for sleeves and body. Well, I'm not doing that. So I picked up I am getting to the point here. I picked up a different project, a different whip to work on that was fairly mindless. Instead, I picked up my Umpqua sweater. And this is embarrassing because I look back, because it's Vlogtober, I look back on my notes from last October. I was knitting the sweater back then. In fact, the fibre that's on my spinning wheel right now was on my spinning wheel last October too. It's been off and had other things on since then, but it's still not finished and it's a year later, so it's a little embarrassing. Same with this sweater. Now the problem with this sweater is when I started knitting it, and I knitted it in quite autumnal colours, as you can see, which is why it's kind of sat in hibernation, is I got partway through knitting it and I thought, what would I wear it with? Now today I'm in kind of my cosy loungy around clothes. I mean, like, I'm in sweatpants and, you know, shirt. But predominantly I like wearing dresses. So I thought, how am I going to wear this sweater? It would work great with sweatpants, cozy, you know. But I don't wear sweatpants that often. I tend to wear them when I'm working, when I'm dyeing yarn and stuff. So I thought, oh, maybe I could crop it. So it got so long. And I got it to the sort of length I wanted it. And I started knitting 1x1 rib, and I hate knitting rib. And I knit about not that much. And I tried it on and I didn't like it. I just didn't like the fit. It just didn't work as a crop sweater. It's too heavy a yarn. And the pattern, and the design, it just didn't work. Didn't work for me. I didn't like the fit and the way it worked. So I thought, what am I going to do about it? Now my husband really likes this sweater. He's tried it on. The yoke fits him a hell of a lot better than it fits me. And he really likes the colours. And it's a nice, I'd like to say unisex design, but any design is for anybody really, you know what I mean? It's just that he wouldn't feel uncomfortable wearing it. That's what I mean. And he just really liked it. So I thought, I'm going to make it into kind of a communal sweater. Well, it's for him, but you know, yeah, I can borrow it. So what I did last night was what I've been putting off doing, which is I ripped out the rib. I ripped out all the rib and I picked up the stitches last night during the film, and that's as far as I got basically. It's on my needles again now, and because I've just picked it back, all I'm going to do is I'm going to knit it longer. My husband's quite tall. He's 6'3" when he stands up straight, and he has quite a long body, long back, and he has long arms. This is like a gorilla. So I'm going to carry on knitting, stocking it. I can do this while watching a film, dead easy. I haven't found the beginning of the round. I can't find it, but it doesn't matter because all I've got to do now is knit, stockinette and knit a rib, so it doesn't matter where the beginning and end is. I fretted over that a bit last night. So I'm going to knit this longer till it's a length where he's comfortable wearing it. And then I did start knitting one of the sleeves here. The ball for that is somewhere in there. And I'll just knit the sleeves longer, which for me is not great because I like a 3/4 sleeve. But I'll just knit it longer, and if I want a nice warm sweater, I'm cold, because sometimes it gets cold here. If we get an easterly wind especially, the house gets very cold, or a northerly, is I can just borrow his sweater, because chances are good he'll be at work and won't be wearing it, and I can just put it on and kind of have a cozy sort of a sweater, as long as I'm not working, because then it'll drive me crazy. But that's my plan, and that's my current whip. Amongst many, but it's the one I'll be actively actively working on probably over the next week or so on a night. So yeah, that is my whip, and the Brave at Heart mittens once I've finished gluing the needle, which is on my to-do list for today. So finally, and this is getting a bit long now, so I'll hurry things along, is my acquisitions. And my acquisitions are yarn, funnily enough. I mentioned I went to Perth Yarn Festival. I was a vendor at there. First time I'd vended at a large festival, and it was fun, tiring, and an eye-opener. I really enjoyed it. But of course I came back with yarn that I didn't take with me. So I'm not going to talk a lot about Perth. Oops, blowing out a bit there. I did a vlog video of Perth, which you can find on the channel if you're interested in that. There's not a lot of talking, but there's a little wee bit of what's going on and about the Airbnb we stopped at in Perth. It was gorgeous. It was a little tiny like little bit 2-bedroom a little 2-bedroom cottage in the middle of freaking nowhere. It was brilliant. You had to drive. It was an estate cottage, which means it's part of a big how can I describe it if you're not from Scotland? Some of the big houses, been in the family for centuries, big houses, have what's called an estate, which kind of makes sense wherever you come from. And on the estate will be several cottages or houses. In bygone days, they would have been the workers' cottages, or, you know, the land manager's cottage, or the farm, you know, with farm managers' cottages, all those sorts. The people that worked on the estate generally had these houses and cottages. And a Scottish estate can own quite a lot of cottages, or I keep saying cottages, but properties, I should say. And they're generally rented out, usually rented out to people long term, but they also have some to do Airbnb ones as well. And this was a cottage, and you had to drive onto the estate. Didn't see the big house because, you know, it's big trees, but I did see the owners and waved hi. This one you had to drive along this lane, and then you got to a farm, and then you went through the farmyard, and then you went up this like off-road track to get to the cottage, and you had to like drive. It was a good job we had my mum's truck, because if we'd gone on a Mini Cooper, the day we arrived would have struggled because it was wet and it was slippy, and my Mini Cooper was like really low tyres. And there's a bit of forestry, and the forestry commission I think had been in, or some forestry works had been in, and there was like bits of branches and bark and stuff everywhere over the track, which is fine because we had a truck. But it was good fun anyway, and we had this long drive up to the cottage, and it was just in the middle of nowhere, and it was brilliant. There was like a fields before you got to the farm one way, and fields until you got to absolutely nothing that way, and it was stunning. And like I said, I did a vlog video, so go see it, and it'll show you the cottage. And it was I could have lived there. I loved that cottage. You could pick it up and plonk it. No, it would be different if you picked it up and plonked it in Orkney, but it was lovely anyway. So I've got a bit sidetracked. Back to acquisitions. The first thing I bought was, I had to, and it was Mothy and the Squid. I love Mothy and the Squid's colourways. I could buy everything from her, maybe except for the fluorescent colours. I'm not big on like neon. That's neons. Neon in amongst another yarn is great, but neon on its own, it's not really me. But the rest of her colours are just unbelievable. The whole, I missed out on buying like a mini set of hers on her store, and it was all her new autumn colourways, and it's just so nice. Wouldn't know what to do with it, but it's beautiful. So I went to Mothy's stall, well, Gillian's stall, and I bought 2 skeins of her yarn. In fact, one of my customers later on came, and she'd been there and she bought the exact same colourways. That's quite funny. In the same bases as well. So I bought these 2 skeins, and oh my goodness, look at them. Aren't they just stunning? They are beautiful. First of all, this one, I wanted a skein of this last year, but I was restrained because I don't know, yeah. I just didn't buy it last year, but I regretted it, and I bought a skein this year. And this colourway is called Autumn is Coming, and I bought it on the 85% superwash merino, 15% Donegal nep base, and it's gorgeous. The neps are the natural neps, it's not the multicolour neps, and it's predominantly this deep forest green, and it's got pops of like burgundy red and lighter green, and it's just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. I thought I'm going to get another skein to go with it rather than just have one skein, because one skein projects you're kind of limited. So I got this skein, which is a new one this year. This is Oh My Goodness, and it's these beautiful shades of like pumpkin orange and green, and it's just gorgeous. I've got no other way to describe it. It's just stunning, and together they are just beautiful. So I will probably do a shawl of some description and stripe that has stripes and stuff in it, because it's just beautiful. It's obviously beautifully soft because it's mostly merino, and the nips just give it that wee bit of texture. I don't know if you can see the nips in there very well, but you've got these little wee nips and it's just really pretty. So I need to get on with that because I want to cast this on really soon. I'm tempted with the is it the drifter shawl on Ravelry? I think it's the drifter shawl. If it's not the drifter one, it's another one that's very similar by the same designer. I'll put the links below if I remember. And I want to cast it on really soon. And I also had to go to the store of Orlan, and they're from Ireland, and I have no idea how exactly you pronounce their name. Irish, let's think. Orlan. And I bought these 2 skeins. Again, I tried to do 2 skeins instead of 1 skein this time, because buying 1 skein, you're like, what am I going to do with 1 skein of yarn? So I have lots of 1 skeins of yarn, but I don't know what to do with at present other than socks. So I bought one of their new colourways, was this one, which is Kiln, and I'm not sure if it's going to show. Yeah, it's showing up quite well. It's like shades of like a warm terracotta-y brown and green. It kind of reminds me of, and you can't see this in real unless you're in real life, it reminds me of you know, when copper starting to go green and you get the mixture of the copper and the green. It's kind of like that, but more of a matte than a, not like a copper, like a shiny copper. And it is on single ply 100% superwash merino base, and it's, as you can see, it's the singles there. And it's more of the terracotta colour in real life than the green. The green shows up really well on the candle and on the camera, and the terracotta-y colour, the coppery colour, doesn't. But it's actually mostly copper with a little bit of green. And then of course I got this one to go with it, which is a deep green. It's not quite as green as that. It's probably about that. And that is on Portrait, that colourway. Same base, 100% merino singles, and they're to go together in a project as well. And the last thing I bought, which, no, it's not the last thing I bought. I've been eyeing up this the whole time I was there. It was honest, the store was really close to me. This is the Wool Barn, and I bought this from the Loveliest Yarn, is it the Loveliest Yarn Company? Loveliest or Loveliest Little Yarn Company. She had a few different yarn companies on her stall, like the Wool Barn and Banshee Yarns. I love this. She had a sample knit up of this in a shawl with some little wee minis in it. I can't remember what the shawl's name was. But it had like bands of the minis, like a gradient. It was really pretty, and I loved this. The colour of this is gorgeous. It reminds me of like gingerbread. It's just like homemade, like gingerbread cookies, or like gingerbread cake. And this is cashmere socks. That's 80% superwash extra fine merino, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon, and the colourway is toffee. And I will be making a shawl very similar to the sample one, because it was, when it's knit up in stockinette, which there's a lot of purling going on there, but when it's knit up in stockinette, you can really get the softness of the yarn. It's beautiful. And finally, I bought a skein from Dye Ninja, and I bought a skein of red. I was after a skein of red yarn, and I went round the stalls about 3 times, and I still really couldn't decide. There was still a couple more I might buy at some down the line, because I love red. Red's my favourite colour, you know. And this one is in a base I've been after for a time, since Edinburgh Yarn Fest last year, and I think it was Travel Knitter did a similar base, if not the same base. And it is 50% baby camel, 50% silk, and it is beautifully soft. It's got a shine to it, not that much shine, not that much shine. Let's see what I can do. That's right. If I can move my face back, it's got a bit of shine to it. It's really nice. The colour is, let's see if I can get the colour right. It is pretty much that colour. The colourway is called Cyan, I think. And I think I'll do like quite a lacy open work, either a very lacy open work shawl with it, or like a squishy cowl. A squishy cowl would be nice. I have a red cowl, but it's not a floppy one, if you know, it's a bit stiff. but this is soft, beautiful. So that was my acquisitions. That's all my acquisitions, thank goodness. And yeah, so briefly touch on, like this is, I'm on a lot of pain medication at the moment. I came out of remission for trigeminal neuralgia, which I mentioned in my last Vlogtober videos last year, which is basically, it's the trigeminal nerve. It starts kind of, the main root of it is here. I'll do it the other side. That's my tender side. It's here, and it has 3 branches. It comes down here. I'm not looking at the camera because I'm looking at what I'm doing. Across here and up here. 3 branches. And when it gets irritated or damaged or overexcited, shall we say, you get a lot of pain. And it depends. Some people get pain in all 3, some people in just a couple, whatever. But the pain is horrendous. Now, I've had my gallbladder out because I had whopping great gallstones in that. And that was painful. Not the operation, the actual gallbladder. If anybody's ever had gallbladder problems and gallstones, you'll know exactly what I mean. It hurts a lot. This is horrendous. A week ago, it flared up, and by 2 o'clock in the morning, I wanted to die. It was so horrendously bad. It was, oh, awful. And normal painkillers don't do a thing. Ibuprofen, paracetamol, it doesn't do anything to it. If you get, maybe if you get a headache because you're like tense because of the pain, it'll get rid of your headache, but not this. It doesn't touch it. What you have to take is a type of anti-epileptic drug, because it slows down the nervous system, which I assume is why you would take it for epilepsy. I'm not, obviously. And it's calming down the nerves. You just slow down the nervous system, slow down the overexcited and agitated nerve because it's been damaged or whatever. So, but it takes a couple of days to really get it in your system, get it, you know, get the pain under control. And at the moment, it's a bit painful at the moment because I left it a little bit long between doses. So I'm on quite high dose. So if I'm a little bit not being able to find my words, although that's kind of normal for me, that might be why. I'm much better since I've been on this like over a week, so it's fine. But that's why I might look a little bit more tired than normal, and a little bit more, that's why I'm in my comfy clothes. I want to be comfortable, and it's really cozy. I just want to go to bed. I can't go to bed because it's too early. So yeah, it's flared up again, and it causes a few problems in that you got to be really careful with cold. Cold is really bad. It sets it away. It's like, you know, it's hypersensitive, so you calm it down, but you've still got that hypersensitivity, and certain things can set it off, and it's different for everybody. So for me, most of the triggers were if you can't, you know, if you hurt your hand and you want to rub it because it hurts, you can't do that, because if you do that, you just stimulating the nerves more, so you can't rub your face or anything, or the nerve or anything like that. Heat helps. So my hands are quite cold at the moment, but if my cheekbones tend to get very, very cold and pick up the cold. So if I was cold but my hands were hot, I could kind of press my hot palm to my face. My face is actually quite warm at the moment, but my hands are quite cold, so I'm not going to do that. Some people, hot is bad and you have to use cool. Everybody's different on it. Same with like things like spicy food or chewing hard food can be really painful, so I'm off the nuts, which is a bugger because I really like nuts. So that's what's been happening with me. I can't think of anything else other than the fact I've been to Perth. I'm trying to update the Etsy store. I've been retaking photos, so I've re-updated the photos for the current listings, and I've took photos of some more yarns to go on there, just haven't done it yet. And then I have a whole stack more left from Perth that I need to photograph and put listings on Etsy as well, so keep an eye out for those. I'm doing Vlogtober again this year. Vlogtober, my first video should have been up already, so if you're not seeing that, check it out. I haven't done an awful lot of interesting stuff over the last couple of days because it's just been doctor's appointments and stuff like that, and other things as well, but it's been kind of a little bit busy. So tomorrow things should be like, I'm at home all day. Yay! Well, that's the plan. I've got no wood to touch. Touch wood. I'm in all day tomorrow, so I'll be able to do some more autumnal October things, which is really exciting. I've got a pumpkin back there. That's completely accidental. I didn't put that on purpose there because I'm having a podcast. I just put that there the other day because it was over there on the floor, and I picked it up. Oh, I'll just stick it up there for now. I was like, how convenient. Look, I've got pumpkin, raven. Ah, good vlogger. So Vlogtober, catch up with those. I'll have bits and bobs I'm doing over Vlogtober. Last year's Vlogtober videos, if you're not seeing them, go check those out as well. And hopefully I'll be doing Vlogmas like I did last year and be a bit more regular with. I wasn't very good with Vlogmas last year, but I was with Vlogtober. I think I only missed like one day of Vlogtober last year. Hopefully I'll do the same this year. So that's everything for this time. I'm still very long on the podcast and these take ages to upload online. Never mind. So hopefully I will speak to you soon and I will have another podcast up shortly. Hopefully not too long. I think the last one was before Perth, but then I had Perth. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks I'll have another podcast up and I'll check me out on Vlogtober and I'll speak to you soon. Okay, bye bye.